I had a buddy get convicted the other night. I said it at Mount View this morning. He didn't have to ask me what was happening. I would hope that he would ask me a question if he needed an answer out of anything. But whenever I had talked to him about it, I didn't try to sway him one way or another. He doesn't go to a church that's like ours, but I told him the facts about it, and I told him the truth about it. And I didn't try to sway him that he had to come to a church like ours, but I said that anytime he would like to, the house was always open for him. And whenever he had texted me Wednesday night after he'd got out of the service, and he told me that it was happening. He had fell under conviction. His heart started pounding out of his chest. And whenever he told me that I knew that he had really been convicted about it. And he told me that he didn't go up or he didn't do anything. He just stood there. And all I could think about was whenever I did the same thing. And the Lord doesn't promise a second chance at it. He doesn't offer a second chance at salvation. While He's drawing is the time to get it. If you would, just remember Him, that He will get a second chance at salvation. If y'all want to turn with us tonight, I'm going to be reading out of Matthew chapter 7. Starting in the first verse, it says, "Judge not, that ye be not judged, for with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. With what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that thy brother's eye, but considerest not that the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say unto thy brother, Let me pull out the mote of thine eye, and behold, the beam is in thine own eye?" Right there, and it's talking about reproving somebody that's doing something wrong in their life. Just to have something be going wrong in your life, just to be living in sin as yourself. It's talking about you can't judge somebody, or judge is not really the right word, but to reprove and rebuke somebody for doing something wrong whenever it's happening in your life too. It talks about earlier in the Bible, if your eye causes you to fall into sin, causes you to do something you ought to not do, to pluck it out, because it's easier to go into heaven with one eye than it is to go to hell with both of your eyes. To be cast into that outer darkness. Whenever it's talking about that, it's not really talking about the physical side of it, but more the what's going on in your heart side of it. Whenever I started thinking about that, if I can find myself in a world of trouble and sin, I can figure out why I'm in that sin. Whether it's my eyes looking at something or whether it's my hands going at something, whatever it may be, I need to cut it off. I need to get it out of my life so I can further and better serve the Lord. Whenever I can get the sin out of my life, that's whenever the wheels can start turning. That's when the rubber hits the road. And that's whenever I can actually start doing something for the Lord. "Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam in thine own eye, and thou shalt see clearly to cast out the mote for thine brother's eye." Right there, it goes back to what I just said. Whenever you can get it out of your eye, or whenever you can get your sin out of your life, that's whenever you can help your brother out. It says to bear one another's brothers in this Bible. It says to take everybody else's cares and everything else, to bear one another's burdens. Whenever you can get your own life sorted out, that's whenever you can start helping other people with theirs. "Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample under their feet, and turn against and render you." In this Bible, it talks about people who are going to turn away from the Word of God here in the last days. They're not going to want to hear it. But that doesn't mean that we ought to just not tell anybody about it. But there's going to be some people that's not going to want to hear it. There's some people that's going to turn away from you whenever you try to tell them about it, and that's all right. It talks about right here not to give anything holy to the dogs. Whenever there's some things that I can talk about to somebody that's not been saved or that doesn't have salvation, that they're not going to get everything that I'm going to tell them. I may tell them something about the Spirit coming up over me and just feeling so good all the time, and they're not going to understand that. But that doesn't mean we ought to not tell them the good things that come. Whenever we tell them the good things, we ought to invite them to go to church with us so they can get it by first hand. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For every one that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and him that knocketh it shall be opened. Or what man is there of you whom if his son ask bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he ask a fish, will he give him a serpent? If ye then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good things to them that ask? You know, out there it's talking about people whenever they come to you for answers, or whenever they come to you for something, not to give them anything that would hinder them from it. You know, whenever people come and ask you questions, you know, I talked about the buddy that had asked me a few things, or talked to me about a few things. You know, whenever he come to me and asked for the answers to stuff, or asked me the questions, you know, I had to give him a straight and honest answer about it. You know, like here it says, if somebody comes and asks you for bread, would you give them a stone? You know, I'm not trying to hinder anybody from receiving everything that they can at that altar whenever they get convicted. You know, I'm trying to help them if nothing else. You know, but I've got to tell them the path that they ought to go down. Therefore, all things, whatsoever you would that men should do, do you even so to them, for this is the law and the prophets. Enter ye to strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth into destruction, and many there be which go in there, because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. You know, right there, whenever it's talking about the straight and wide gate, you know, you can relate it back to what he said earlier in the chapter. You know, that straight and wide, or that straight gate, it's not going to be too easy to follow. You know, but with the Lord's help and guidance, you can follow it. You know, it talks about whenever you've got sin in your life, to get it out. You know, that's not always easy to do, but that's what we ought to do. You know, it's not just something we can live with and just keep on going. We ought to get it out of our life and then keep on going. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are raven wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistle? Right there, it talks about the false prophets that are going to be coming, and some of them may have already come. You know, there's some people that are preaching what they say is the gospel that's not the gospel. You know, but in these churches, the Baptist Church of Christ, I'd hope that we could always just stand on the sound doctrine and preach it and not worry about it. Me and Brother Jonathan got to talking about numbers outside, you know, and I told him I'd rather have a few people that would really stand for the Word of God and be here for the right reasons than to have a whole multitude of people and none of them be under the sound doctrine. You know, we talked about if we have just a few people that are here for the right reasons, you know, it's better than having a whole bunch of people that don't know what they're here for. And don't come to eat, don't come to do anything other than just to be here. You know, whenever we can get ourselves in the state of mind and the state of want to come and eat in the house of God, that's when it's going to happen. Even so, every good fruit bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. You know, right there it talks about a good tree only brings forth good fruit, and an evil tree brings forth bad fruit. You know, and it's some people, I've heard it preached before, that you can hide everything from the people around you, but you can't hide it from God. You know, and there's the good fruit and the evil fruit you can't hide from everybody. You know, whenever your life's going down the drain, and whenever you're doing bad things, whenever you're out here in the world of sin, you know, that you can't hide that from everybody. You know, somebody's going to find out about it. Somebody's going to know about it. You know, there's only some things that you can keep from everybody else seeing and finding out. You know, one of those things is salvation. You know, I've heard and saw of people that try to play the part that they've been saved, or try to say that they've been saved and try to go through the motions with everything so everybody thinks that they're all right. But that's one of those things that you can't hide from. You can hide from everybody around you, but you can't hide it from God. And going back to that, if you have been saved and if you have done everything according to the will of God, then you're going to have some good fruit growing. You know, and if you don't have good fruit growing, you need to get on your knees and figure out why it's not growing. You know, because the Spirit will reveal you everything that you need to do right and everything that you're doing wrong. there's been many times where I've had to get down on my knees and had to ask Him, why isn't this working out? Or why isn't this going how I thought it should go? Most of the time the finger can be pointed at me for it. There's nothing that the Lord's ever told me to do that it didn't work out for the wrong reasons. There's been times where I've preached and I thought I should have done a little bit better, or I should have done everything else better, and that was just me. That's whenever I couldn't get myself out of the way. That's when I couldn't do everything that the Lord was wanting me to do, because I had some things in my life I had to get straightened out. Wherefore by the fruits ye shall know them. Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, should enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Out there it talks about that not everybody that does that performs miracles or does things in the name of God is going to inherit the kingdom of heaven. Like I said earlier, you can try to go through the motions, or you can try to say that you've been saved, but you can't hide it from God. You may have everybody full down here. You may be the top row member of this church, but you can't hide it from God. Many will say to me that in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name cast out devils, in thy name done many wonderful works. And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you, depart from me, ye workers of iniquity. Just like right there on that final day, if you've not been saved, that's when you're going to get found out. That's whenever the rubber's really going to hit the road with it. You've got this time on earth to get everything straightened out, and that's all you really should be worried about, is getting everything straightened out. If you've not already straightened it out, that's your number one priority this tonight. Whenever you can get that whenever you can get that straightened out, that's whenever everything else starts to work out too. Whenever I'd gotten saved, there was some of the older sisters of this church told me that was the best decision I'd ever make. And it was. That's the one thing. If you don't go to college, or if you don't finish high school, or if you don't get a real good paying job, if nothing else goes right for you in your life, that's the one thing you ought to get straightened out here tonight. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon the house. And it fell not, for it was found upon a rock. And every one that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and the beat among the house, and it fell, and was great. And great was the fall of it. Out there it talks about having your house built on the rock and your house built on the sand. Whenever you can get your house built on the rock, that's whenever everything's going to be firm and foundation. And this here tonight, whenever you get to, like we sang a few minutes ago about the old account was settled. Whenever you can get that old account settled, that's whenever you're going to be built on the rock. Whenever you know the right from wrong, whenever you know what you ought to be doing, what you ought to not be doing, that's whenever you can have a firm foundation. Now, this morning over at Mount View, somebody talked about the people that were in the hurricanes and the floods in the mountains. All the things that all the natural disasters that happened. And this morning we also talked about everybody that didn't know Christ. Hadn't been saved, hadn't been born again. That they ought to get that in line and not worry about all the natural things. They might have lost a house up there. They might have lost anything thing of this world. But if they've been saved by the grace of God, if they've got that straightened out, everything else will fall in line. It may not be always the prettiest of things or the nicest of things, but that's really what matters here tonight. And it came to pass, and Jesus had ended these sayings, and the people were astonished at his doctrine. For he taught as one having authority, and not as the scribes. Out there, as I read that out in the truck, I thought about it for a few minutes, and the Lord put this on me. Whenever he was teaching all these things, everybody had went to a rabbi or went to a high priest or had went to somebody that everybody had thought was really preaching sound doctrine. But the one that was really preaching sound doctrine was Jesus Christ. If nothing else here tonight, You've heard sound doctrine. I've preached to you nothing but the words of Jesus Christ. Whenever you can listen and hear those things, and it can really touch your heart. If you've got something in your life here tonight that you need to get settled out, whether it's being saved or whether you've been lost or whatever it may be, you may be living in a world of sin, whatever it may be. If you can build your house upon the rock, that's where you can stand. That's where you'll be having a firm foundation. That's where everything else will fall in place here tonight.